So my name's Chris McHugh-Potts. I'm on the board of the Zullo Gallery, as is a couple other people who are former and current members as well here in this space today. So we're launching, this is actually the fourth in the Meet the Artist series that we got funding for from the Mass Cultural Council through the Medfield Cultural Council. And we're just so thrilled to be able to keep doing these talks with Meet the Artist. So, most of you know who our featured speakers are, but I'll give you the quick synopsis in a second. But just for anybody who doesn't know about the Zullo Gallery, we're in the heart of the center of Medfield, offering art exhibits, education, classes for children and adults, community gatherings, and of course, live music. And if you haven't been there yet, definitely stop up and see what's going on at the Zullo Gallery on Main Street. So here today with us, we have two phenomenal musicians, talented, wonderful, dedicated people. We have Jerry Bergonzi and Jeri DiMarco Bergonzi. Wave your hands. So, you probably know Jerry is, I'm going to call it, do the Mr. and Ms., just in case we don't get confused with who we're talking about. So Jerry is internationally recognized performer, tenor saxophonist, recording artist, author, educator, just a phenomenal all-around good person. The Geraldine Bergonzi, Ms. Bergonzi, is a talented jazz pianist, vocalist, educator who has dedicated so many hours and time and energy to developing younger students coming up in all ages. Just another all-around great person and someone I love working with on the Zullo board. So we're gonna launch into some basic questions, get these guys talking. I also have here with us today Anton Derbianco, who is a product of the Medfield Public Schools. He is also a tenor saxophonist who got a full ride to Berkeley, was honored with the Van Doren Rising Artist Award recently. He, as a side note, was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. And I just thought this would be a really nice uplifting thing for him to be doing today, and he can help chime in with some questions as we go along. So let's start at the beginning. For Jerry and Jeri, can you just describe what it was like for you two growing up? I mean, was music a central part of your lives, or was it something that came later? Were your parents musicians, for example?
Neither of my parents were musicians. I had a grandfather who was a musician, and my uncle, I grew up in Watertown after moving from the north end of Boston, the Italian section. And I lived in an apartment building, and my uncle lived a floor up from me, and he played trombone, bass, and guitar. And he was a jazz musician and excellent musician, great musician. But I don't really remember anybody saying, "Yeah, oh, you should listen to music." It was just a natural thing. They came to my school one day, and they played the lowest note on the piano, and then they played the highest note on the piano. And they said, was the second note higher or lower than the first one? Well, 50% of us got it right. We were musically gifted. They said, what instrument do you want to play? And I said, the trumpet. And they said, no, according to this test, you'd be better suited to play a clarinet. So I said, clarinet? What's a clarinet? Okay. So I went home and I pestered my mother every day for a couple of months till she finally got this U.S. Army clarinet. So I remember a silver clarinet for $17 at the time. And I started taking lessons from a guy named Maurice Sachs. And I remember bringing every lesson, I would bring 2 quarters, 2.25, it was 50 cents a lesson. And
I know, isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. My first record was Lester Young with Count Basie's, Kansas City 7, I thought 6 or something like that. And then I got some Duke Ellington records and more Count Basie records. And I had a small band a Conti Condoli record. And then a friend of mine, when I was in the 8th grade, came by with a Miles Davis record with John Coltrane, and Art Blakey record with Wayne Shorter and Lee Morgan, and a Sonny Rollins record. And at that point, I heard that, I was hooked.
For me, I didn't get hooked till later, because when I was younger, I had an aunt who was an opera singer, and somebody in the family gave us a piano sometime around we were 12, and my mother and I started taking a few lessons. I took lessons for about a year or something like that, and then interested in singing Joni Mitchell and Laura Nyro and the folk songs, played a little guitar then. And so when I decided to go to college, it was like, well, my mother said, are you sure you don't want to go to music school? And I was like, no, I'm going to go to Boston College. I'm going to study something equally difficult to get a job in, which was English literature and philosophy. and then, but my senior year of college, I decided, I want to get to play piano a little better. I said, I'm going to take some lessons, jazz, classical. I don't know, I'll take jazz, whatever that is. I never even listened to jazz. I went to my first lesson, and my teacher gave me a list, and I went out and bought 3 records, one of which was Giant Steps, Coltrane, and one which was A Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. And that was the beginning of my career playing music. After that, I got hooked. The other one was a Monk record. But after that, I got hooked. So when I got out of school, I went on to study with the guru, Charlie Banakis, who was Jerry's friend. They grew up and went to college together, music school. So
yeah, they used to throw me out of the practice room at college to practice jazz. The head of the jazz, the music department, Dr. Edward Gilday, stuck his head in one day. I was practicing, and he said, "Let somebody serious about music practice in here. I'm giving you the hairy eyeball." But I know that sounds bad, but if I had to go back in time and listen to myself practice at that time, I would have thrown myself out. So,
how did you two meet?
Well, since I had just started listening to jazz and was starting to play a little bit, because back in those days they hired you when you were pretty green. It just happened to be a good time of the city of Boston, playing in hotels and stuff like that. But anyway, I already knew who Jerry was because he was on the jazz scene, and my teacher often talked about him, and actually had me play for him over the phone a couple of times. But I was playing at the Sheraton Hotel in the Doubles Lounge, and there was like a wraparound mirror that went around like that, and there was a piano in the middle, and it was like "Beam Me Up, Scotty." It geared down like this, and in walks Jerry Bergonzi with Bruce Skirts, and I was like, oh no, I have to play for those guys. But that was the first time I met him.
Yeah, I remember my friend Charlie Banakis calling me up and said, "Oh, listen to this woman play piano. She said, really sounds good. Here's a composition she just wrote." And I said, "Wow, she's really talented. Great player." And then this tenor player was studying with me, Jim Adel, really talented tenor player. And he said, "Yeah, I get this gig where I'm playing with this piano player. She's got some McCoy stuff." I said, "What's her name?" She said, "Oh, Jeri DiMarco." I said, "How's she look?" Sorry.
And Jim said I was hot.
Yeah. A couple of months after, we had a gig together. I forget where, Leominster or something like that.
Yeah.
And she picked me up in her LTD Ford, and we didn't live too far away from each other. And the rest is history.
That's it. Yep.
Coming out of a relationship, and so was I. So
there you go. Yep. Now look at you. So yeah, these are like the younger days, right? We'll go a little bit further back when you're both learning to play your instrument, your saxophone or the piano. What was that like for you? How old were you again? And then, how did it come easily? Was it something that you had to practice a lot? Did you resist it? Tell us what that experience was like.
Well, for me, I didn't really start studying jazz until I was a senior in college. And when I started studying, I had no idea what jazz even was. I'd never listened to it. So I'd get a lesson, and the teacher would tell me to go home and try to solo on G7 or, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just searching around and, I obviously enjoyed it. I learned to like it a lot, but I remember the first song he ever gave me to this teacher, who turns out to be the father of one of Jerry's students. His name was David Slater. It was just a cute little connection, right? But he gave me "Well You Needn't" by Thelonious Monk, which is not a particularly easy tune to play. I don't know why he gave me that tune, but that was my first tune. So it was, it was really different then, because when I went on and studied with Charlie Banakis, things weren't so readily available. He would tell me I have to transcribe a solo off a particular record. First of all, you had to find the record, which was, drive around Boston to cheapo records in various places, buy the record. Then I'd go home and I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. I'd tape onto the reel-to-reel the song. Otherwise, you can't keep lifting up and down the needle on the turntable, because if you try to transcribe something, it's like you need to listen to it over and over again. So I had my reel-to-reel set up, and and that was the beginning of my falling in love with jazz.
Wow. How about playing the piano, Jerry? Was that tough for you to learn how to play when you first learned?
I don't really remember.
You don't remember?
Physically challenging or anything like that, but
Yeah.
when I started learning, it was, the usual. I just took the usual, like classical kind of lessons that were John Thompson's. I only made it up to John Thompson's book 2 or 3. I didn't make it too far.
What about you, Jerry, with the saxophone?
Well, I was very fortunate that at age 14, I got to study with Joe Viola at Berklee College of Music, School of Music. I forget what they called it at that time. And he's like, still to this day, he's my guru. Just the way he taught how to play the saxophone, and the etudes I'd have to practice, and then he got me to be in John LaPorta's Greater Boston Youth Band when I was in the 11th and 12th grade of high school, and I'm one of the featured soloists in the band. And I'd go in every week, and every week I'd go in and play a session on Tuesday nights with Steve Gould, the trombone player and arranger. I was taking arranging lessons, and then I wanted to go to Berklee, but I figured, well, it's a shoo-in. They'll give me some money, right? So, but not a penny. So I went to Lowell State Teachers College, where they used to throw me out of the practice room for practicing jazz, but it was all good. It's all good. A great experience just being in John LaPorta's youth band, because John wouldn't pull any punches. If he would tell you exactly what you needed to hear. I remember when I was in the 11th grade, he stopped the band and he said, and everybody's looking, "What's up, John?" And he's pointing at me because it was my solo. Said, "You're moonbagging." So I said, "What's moonbagging?" He said, "You're not making the changes. You're playing far out." So we'll play the tune again, and he stopped the band. "You're moonbagging." So after that, because I'd be home practicing along with Coltrane records all day long, and like some far out ones. So he was right from the get-go said, "Man, I'm going to really learn how to play chord changes," because I was so embarrassed, but it was the perfect thing to tell me.
When you were younger, how old were you when you first picked up your first instrument?
8 years old.
And what was your first reaction? Were you excited about it?
Yeah, I was kind of excited about it, but it wasn't like something that I had, it wasn't an addiction yet. Yeah. And then when it becomes an addiction, when you just hear a sound in your head, you want to make that sound.
Yeah.
Just fun and games for a while, which is cool. And it should be like that because you want to have a childhood. But at a certain point, you say, "Yeah, man, I'm really going to practice a lot. This is the sound I want to do. I want to do this." But it wasn't until I was 30 years old that because I kept saying, "Gee, I wonder what I'm going to do when I grow up." About 30 years old, I guess I wasn't qualified to do anything else. So I said, "I guess I'm just going to be a musician," Of course, at that time, I had been around the world with Dave Brubeck several times, in
Mm.
6 years, 200 days a year, uh,
Oh,
living in New York City for 5 years and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I played, I would play, it didn't matter what the gig was. If they wanted me to play piano, I play. If they wanted me to stand on the corner of the room and stand on my head and play saxophone, I do that. It's just pay the rent.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I moved to New York City, I was playing behind strippers, playing bass uh, up in Derry, New Hampshire at the shanty. And they'd have a singer. Well, Billy Stevens was a trumpet player with Charlie Banakis on piano and on bass and Tony Spitaleri on drums. And they'd have different dancers come in and strip every week and a singer and a comedian. It wasn't vulgar or anything. As a matter of fact, I didn't even look at the strips. I was so into playing quarter notes with the drummer, just trying to hook up. I was just a time of my life and just save up enough money to move to New York City. And then I left the bass at home.
So in terms of just music in your life, beyond the professional accomplishments that you both had, I mean, can you talk a little bit about the benefits that it's provided for you? Again, beyond sort of the living wage piece of it, especially in times like these, given the pandemic and what's going on in the world, just in terms of what benefits you think it has given to you personally.
In such a materialistic world, especially in this capitalist society where it's all success is only determined by how much money you make. Well, that's not the same in music. I could care less about success. My success, and it's always been like this, and it still is. I just want to learn how to play. I want to play better. It's all about music. And it's not how much money I make or how famous you get or who you play with. It's all about making art and music. And that just puts you in a kind of a different headspace than somebody who's just thinking about, I want to make more money, more things. It's not a physical kind of thing, it's spiritual. And all the people I've met in my life and still are meeting, it's the same thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
We grow up in different parts of the world. We may even be generations apart, but we live in the same place. We listen to the same music. We practice the same scales. We practice the same things. And we're all making music together. You can get a guy from New Zealand who comes up and you're playing with him, and a person from China. It's amazing.
Yeah. I would say that was, the community of musicians and your feeling of playing music with them. It's a special connection. When you connect on a level like that, you're improvising, you have to be like in the moment, and when you feel like you really connect with somebody in that space, there's such a great feeling afterwards that, it's like, yeah, that was great. We did it.
I was going to say that whole feeling just seems unique to jazz in particular. Do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it teaches you a lot of spiritual values, like trust yourself, trust the people you're playing with, and don't get attached if you feel you're terrible. That you have to keep turning the station back to the music station. Oh, I don't like the reverb. Oh, the drummer's playing too loud. If you get to the right station, just keep concentrating on the right thing. So you get to develop a lot of spiritual muscles: concentration, empathy, compassion, how to play, get along with other people, leadership, things like that.
Yeah, and you're just constantly working on your inner struggles. Like for me, I've always struggled with like feeling that whole piece of not editing and talking to myself through the whole thing, going, oh my God, this sucks. What am I doing? This is bad, and getting it, just trying to get into another space. And, I certainly feel like you can do that in, all kinds of other ways in life. But it just so happened that, I kind of try to do it with tennis now. I feel like sometimes I think to myself, I should feel guilty because, here I am spending all this time playing tennis, and I should be practicing or working on, some music, but in the end, I kind of feel like I'm working on the same thing. It's like I'm trying to be super present and in the moment and
Yeah.
not editing myself and, being creative. And I think that's the reason the jazz thing, it's so different for the jazz pieces, because, you are in a creative, mode when you're improvising. And, somebody who paints a picture, for example, they paint the picture, they have it, they look at it and they say, okay, maybe I want to show it to you or maybe not. But, when you're improvising, you're hanging out there like everything's all out there for everybody to see. And if you're bad, then that's the struggle.
Well,
to not judge yourself or not,
there is no bad. It's just I tell my students, I say it's just noise anyway. Don't be so serious about it. Just whatever came out was supposed to come out. And they say, well, and I tell them I'm not a master of music. Music is the master. There are no masters of music. Who can master the universe? Music is the master, and it teaches you these lessons.
And so much of jazz is about mentorship. And so there are other people that probably took you along in your careers to help establish that sort of view of music. Can you talk about the mentors in both of your lives in terms of, early on and who have led you through your career?
I always tell my students this as well, that the people who they're playing with now, the people who they hook up with and play sessions with, they're going to be playing with them for the rest of their life. So I was playing with Miroslav Vitus, and, I was playing with, I played with Roy Haynes. I played with Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, and Gene Perla. I remember doing sessions all the time with Gene Perla and Don Elias, and Don Elias isn't alive anymore, but, those people would come in my life time and time again in the future, just like crossing paths. So, I played with Jerry Mulligan, Paul Desmond, and Dave Brubeck. But
so you thought of them as mentors?
I thought they weren't musical mentors for me. My musical mentors were my peers.
Yeah.
Playing with Tom Harrell, or doing sessions every day, sometimes with Steve Grossman, Joe Lovano, Steve Slagle, Billy Drews, Paul Moen, Eric Turkel, all these people come, I could go, the list goes on and on, playing with Schofield. Yeah. My peers were my mentors.
What about you?
Oh, well, I agree. Definitely. It's like the people that you end up playing with, those are the people that you kind of grow with and develop a musical relationship. But I mean, in terms of, as far as teachers, I mean, Jerry is a mentor for me in many ways too, because he's, done so much, to categorize information and be able to teach it. But my teacher, Charlie, was a real mentor because he was just super inspirational. His gift was inspiration. The beginning of the week came and I had to get done what I was supposed to get to by the time of my lesson. And, by the next week, it was all about preparing for that moment. It's like having a test every week. But I mean, something that you wanted to do, but he was just super inspirational,
Mm-hmm.
So he would just ask you to do so much and it would just be like, okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, I can say, personally, the thing that I admire so much about both of you is your willingness to just always be there to help aspiring musicians or to help students or to help other performers in any way, shape, or form. And I think, the road through music is not always easy, and people always need that kind of support and need that encouragement and need that inspiration. So can you draw on your own personal experiences with, disappointment or challenges or, failure, and how you coped with it and how maybe you helped others, coming through the music scene, overcome, challenges or disappointments?
Well, yeah, I mean, your biggest critic is always yourself, musical critic, so even if you get 100 people say, "Oh, I really liked what you play." If you didn't like it yourself, that's a different story. You have to pay it. So that's the critic right there. But when you have your peers, in my case, it was Mike Brecker, Bob Berg, Bob Mintzer, those people saying, "Wow, yeah, Jerry, I like what you did here," or practicing with them and, things like that. They play drums, I play saxophone, I play drums, they play saxophone, things like that, and work on things together. That was big for me.
Hmm.
I didn't really have that experience because like I studied music by myself, because I didn't go to a college. So when I got out of college and I was living, somewhere in Newton, I had my room, I had my, and I wasn't really playing with anybody quite yet either. So it was like it was a little hard. And, it was probably one of the reasons it's harder for me to go out into the world and just play, because I've struggled with that, because it's, I didn't come from a place where people were always playing together. And it was like, like if you start off in like high school and, you're playing with your friends and you feel comfortable in the band and it's okay, you guys, like I didn't really have that. So it was different. And I felt like I always had to. So, being that critic that I am of myself, when I see it in a student, I could see them like it coming over them like a wave of like, oh no, this person is like, they're going down into the, into that, hole, and I just like, because I recognize it, I just try to, do whatever I can to, tell them that it's okay, and just, I try to change the channel. I try to, just lighten up the mood, do whatever you can to just make them feel like they're not going to go like down into that hitting the bottom of like self-doubt and, all that kind of stuff.
I had an epiphany this week. I was teaching and I told my student, I said, "I want you to hit as many wrong notes as you can hit.
I like that.
Play all the wrong. I don't want to hear any right ones. I just want to hear wrong notes, but try to make them sound good."
That makes me think about the parallel to sailing lessons. You get on the sailfish and they tell you to purposely capsize the boat so you know how to bring yourself back up.
Yeah. It gives you some other kind of skills, it was great. It was exactly what this person needed. So but everybody's different.
Yeah. What would you give? After this question, I'm going to hand it over to Anton because I know he has some questions he'd like to ask you, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. What advice would you give to aspiring musicians, whether they're younger in high school, thinking that this is something they just want to learn, or whether they're in college, or whether they're have graduated and want to, pursue a career? What advice are you giving young people these days?
The first thing I tell them, once you believe in yourself, just believe in yourself. That's going to be your biggest contributor to your musical growth. You believe in yourself, because anybody who believes in themselves, there's really there's some people who think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they really don't sound that great. And there's people who think they're terrible and they sound amazing. So there's people who think they're and everything in between. So I tell them, what you think has nothing to do with it. Just believe in yourself. The mind is a terrible thing. Bypass that thing. Believe in yourself and play music. Give it everything you got.
Yeah.
Anton, what do you think?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Jerry. It's good to see both of you again. It's been a long time. Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. Hello to everybody that's tuning in and listening. If you didn't know, I studied with Jerry on and off over the course of a couple of years. And Jerry, since we're talking about mentors, Jerry has been one of my biggest mentors on the saxophone, just besides listening to him as a kid and then studying with him and seeing him perform so many times. So it's really a pleasure to be here. And, every time that I get to see him is fantastic. And so my question to both of you, my first question is, outside of music, what has been your biggest inspiration for music? The things that it can be anything. Very, very open-ended question, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, you know, my wife and I have been painting a lot, and particularly her, because I labor over the same painting for could be a year, and I'm working on the same one, you know. But you know, reading books, studying metaphysics, like why things operate the way they operate, energies and things like that. Like I'm a big astrology nut, you know, numerology, and but just seeing the world as is an artistic, you know, and not necessarily thinking in terms of monetary. Like I went to a lecture the other day at New England Conservatory, and they were talking about Jackie Bard, the great composer, educator, piano player, played with Charlie Mingus and God knows who else. And they were saying, well, he didn't have a lot of success. I'm thinking, what are they talking about? He played the greatest music on the planet, so he didn't get a lot of
Notoriety.
Yeah, notoriety, because he wasn't that type of person. He didn't care about it.
Yeah.
But the success is just, it all depends on the person. And I like studying people like that. What one person thinks is success and what then another person thinks is success, because everybody's different.
Well, I mean, I guess that brings me back to the same thought about, like, if I'm playing tennis or if I'm playing around with my paints, or I feel like I'm always trying to do the same thing. And it's always that, just being creative and being in the moment and not editing myself. And, you know, so I find it, you know, inspirational to try to work on the same stuff and doing other things as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to see some of the paintings sometimes. You don't have any on hand, do you, by any chance?
Oh, Jerry might bring one over, because he has a small one, the one he's been working on for. Oh, here's one over here. Let's see. I have to turn. Wait, he's going to show you one. I don't know if
Oh,
you can
wow.
Oh, nice.
It's
That's
like a little. It's like a universe.
No kidding. No kidding.
Awesome.
See it really close. I'm
I'm a terrible painter, but you know what? That's the beauty about it. I could give a rat's ass, you know?
That's the right way to paint. Absolutely. Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
That's why I call it playing with my paint.
Yeah, I noticed that you used a very specific way of saying that. It's like a playful thing, right? More,
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like a childlike exploration in a way, right? That kind of influences
Well,
everything else.
I mean, part of the thing about it is, like, I don't identify as, you know, that's the dichotomy, you know, I don't identify as a painter. So therefore I can play with but on the other hand, I do identify as a musician, and so therefore it's really hard to get to that same playful space.
You know, that's an interesting.
I didn't know you play tennis. That's cool too.
Yeah, and I'm not that good at that either. I have a lot of fun.
How long have you been playing for?
Oh, actually, I've been playing for like 17 years now.
Wow.
So I bet you're
I play almost every day. Just
really?
about.
Then you're definitely better than you let on.
Well, I've had a lot of losses this year, quite a few. In fact, I was celebrating yesterday because I did have a win.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chris, is it okay if I ask one more question? Do we have time for that?
Go for it.
This is a little bit of a heavier question, maybe, but I was wondering what the most stressful or challenging experience in each of your lives has been, both musically and non-musically, if that's okay, if that's not a too personal of a question.
I think the most stressful thing in my life is traveling. am I going to be able to get my saxophone on the overhead?
Mhm.
Am I going to, that sort of thing? Is my ear going to pop on flight? I've had trouble with my ears, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't have any stress playing music because I really don't care. You know, it saves me. And people say, well, how do you write so many? I have a secret. Don't care. If I said to you, write a tune in 20 minutes, because if you write a tune and you finish, I'm going to give you $10,000. You write a tune, you wouldn't care if it sounded good, and it could, it might not. So I practice, and I know the laws of nature. If I practice and put time into it, it's going to sound okay. So I leave that to that. So I don't get nervous playing music, but traveling, it's a pain in the butt, especially today. When I was in the 70s, doing 200 plus flights a year, right? That you could waltz on board 5 minutes before the flight, open seating. They give you drinks. There was always room, saxophone in the overhead. Now that everybody's treated like a terrorist, and you got to wait long lines. You can't get your saxophone on board. You know, they're giving you a hard time with this, that. It's a pain.
I haven't gotten to where he's gotten yet, where I don't care. That's where I'm struggling to get to. So it's like if 5 musicians walk into a room while I'm playing, I could have an immediate like heart attack. It's like, oh no, look at all these people that I have to, you know. Yeah.
Hal Galper,
terrible.
The great piano player, was telling me that one of his students was doing a senior recital, and after he runs up to Hal, and we'll say his name was Steve, and Steve says, Hal, man, I was too nervous. I couldn't play at all. I was terrible. I couldn't play. And Hal grabs him and shakes him. Steve, nobody cares. I mean that in a good way. It's like, hey man, it's like, this is what happened today. Sometimes you get a pitcher, they throw a no-hitter. Sometimes they score 8 runs against them. That's just the way it is, you know?
That's metaphysical.
Mhm.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
Anybody else want to ask a question?
Yeah,
Jerry,
I got a Jerry and I went to high school together, Jerry Bergonzi, and I can remember him in high school playing a sax. He always used to say the first note and the last note. You get those 2 right, everything in the middle is not important.
It's the story of my life.
That's right.
Jerry Potts is here. I wants to ask a question.
I'm in the same room, so I'm gonna walk over here. So
Join me in the Zullo.
So both of you have taught students for many, many years. Have you seen a change with all of the technology and all the distractions and all the, you know, the fact that they're subjected to 900 stimulants of social media and stuff like that? When you are teaching kids today, do you see differences, or when you get into the music and they really click, it's you're taken back 20 years ago? Like, are there changes? Is it harder?
Jerry, that is a great question.
Yeah.
And I tell my wife this all the time. I said, I don't know where these kids are coming from. Every year they get better and better and better.
Mm.
You know, I have students, they're freshmen, and I don't know how they learned how to play like that.
Mm.
But then I think, well, they can go in where we'd have a hard time getting a recording. They can go to YouTube and see everybody play, see videos of them.
Yeah, that's true.
They want to sound like so-and-so. They can get all the transcriptions of that person. It's all the codes are broken.
Mm.
And it's amazing. And a big difference that I find with students is, in my generation, we listen to an album, an LP 1,000 times. Today, they listen to 1,000 LPs once, or 1,000 recordings once. It's different. They go through a lot more music, a lot more, because there's so much more music to listen to. It's completely different.
Yeah.
But the level of playing is off the charts. And you can see it in sports.
Yeah.
You can see it in tennis. You can see it in baseball. You can see basketball. You can see in all the other places in life where younger and younger are getting better and better.
Well, on that point, Anton, you had another question when we were talking.
Anton.
about the influences, other influences besides jazz. Do you want to ask that question? I think it's good. Oh, I didn't hear it.
We briefly talked about,
No, I mean, that styles of music, I mean.
Right. So I was wondering about that as well. Thanks for bringing that up, Jerry. I wanted to know what your favorite musicians are outside of jazz.
I listen to a lot of classical music. Schoenberg, Bach, Mozart, Stravinsky.
But what's the one that you always put on every time we sit down to eat, honey?
Frank Sinatra?
Well, no, but no, the avant-garde classical.
Oh, Charles Ives?
Yeah, Charles Ives.
Yeah, I put on the
Stockholm. What's it called?
The Concord Sonata?
Or, yeah, the other one that begins with an S. Not Stockholm.
Stockhausen?
Stockhausen.
Yeah, I listen to all classical music. I love it. And, Indian music and Latin music,
But don't ask him about rap. Don't bring it up.
Yeah, I'm not a big rap fan because I don't know. It just it just sounds so pretentious to me. But anyway, what do I know?
So I take it, Jerry, you didn't like the halftime show at the Super Bowl, right?
I never watch halftime shows at the Super Bowl.
You would have never watched that, no. No.
I make it a point not to watch it because to me it's the ultimate of commercial music. Be right back.
How about you, Jerry? You taught our daughter all kinds of great music, so I know you have some diverse taste.
I definitely have a broader palette, definitely. And actually, for a period of time, when I first started playing, I studied for 2 years, and I was trying to, make a living, and I needed to get a job. So I actually ended up joining a band that was like a dance band. And it was a quartet. I had to cover the strings on one hand, whatever, there was only one instrument for the chords. So on the left hand, and then I had to sing. And, that was like a whole nother world, playing the, just the pop songs of the 80s. And the band that I played with was more into R&B, which I love R&B and all that kind of music. And but after 2 years of playing in that band, I basically couldn't play anymore, so I had to start over. It was a bit of a detour because it was just like you were playing 6 nights a week doing this stuff, and it was hard to practice for practice jazz during the daytime or whatever. And then after, you're not moving your finger, you're not really doing this, you're not improvising, you're playing parts,
Yeah.
And it was hard to synchronize the parts. I mean, I did learn something from it, but right. I enjoy more pop than I'd say, Jerry does. So.
Oh, actually, that halftime show with Bruno, the singer.
Bruno Mars.
Oh yeah, he's ridiculous.
Yeah, Bruno Mars. That was last couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, that was a knockout.
Yeah.
What are you working on now, both of you? Anything in particular, or new pieces, new compositions?
I get a gig in April that I have to fly up to Montreal, and with a great saxophone player, Remy Bolduc, and he teaches at McGill up there. He's the head of the jazz department or the saxophone department. I forget which one it is. He just sent me down about 10 tunes, so I'm going through this and trying to get they're really kind of rough, a lot of odd time signatures and things like that. So I'm just practicing that, and I was supposed to go to Copenhagen next week to play with Karsten Dahl, famous piano player but that, because of the war, that got canceled. So I was practicing his music, but so I can just lighten up and just practice Remy's music and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you want a live audience today for practicing one of your pieces?
No. No, I'm good.
I mean, I'm trying to find tunes that I can still sing, because having singing all the time is, it's a muscle like anything else.
Yeah.
So now that I don't sing hardly, I might sing once every couple of months at the most, right? I have to lower all the keys to the songs, all the songs that I used to be able to, I have a couple hundred in my book. I can't sing half of them anymore. So I'm on a mission to find some new tunes that are in my range. And
Yeah.
this big.
I just got back from England on the 24th of February. I was supposed to get home the 14th, but I got COVID the day I tested positive for COVID the day before I could return. And of course, you have to self-isolate. And I spent 10 days doing an antigen test. I started about the 4th day after, testing positive every day till finally, after 10 days, I tested negative, and the 11th day I flew home. Oh.
And some people, some friends, part of the big music community took him in, and
they had an extra bedroom with a shower and a bathroom sink and toilet, and man,
and fed him.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
They're going to come and visit us now in
Yeah.
June.
Wow.
On their way to New York. Yeah.
What do you think the future of jazz is? Do you have any predictions?
The future.
Well, you know what I always say, you have to ask the young bloods like Anton would know.
Anton, what do you think the future of jazz is?
What do you think, Anton?
I think the lines between different genres as time goes on are going to get even more blurrier than they are right now. And I think that can be both a good thing and an incredible thing, because right now we're seeing so much influence from other styles of music. And as some of my peers have been influenced by anything you could possibly imagine. It's been pretty incredible to see what some people come up with in combining their different influences, different music from different cultures. I feel like, with such access to technology nowadays, everything is far more connected than it ever was. Music from all around the world, even remote areas, you're finding, traditional hymns or rhythms or all that kind of stuff. And you find all that plays into all music. So, I mean, besides jazz, I think that the next several decades are just going to be even more of that experimentation between electronic music, the combination of different elements of each thing. But I also know what I hope to see as well. And I hope to see in some way a revival of, as much as I love other genres and as much as I love experimenting and playing new things, in my heart, will always love just playing a standard with people. And I'm hoping that at some point that becomes I don't want to say more popular, because it's still popular in places like New York, big cities, in Europe as well. But it would be cool to see a revival of that of some sort in combination with all of the other advances that music is making. That's just, I guess, at first thought, that's what comes to mind. But I don't know, the future of jazz music, and I don't know. Nothing else comes to mind right now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Ever since they did I saw the Ken Burns show series on jazz, I just really understood after I saw that how connected it was to the times. And, you just cannot be back in that time. We're here now, and we're just in a different place. And it's just, to get the sound of the 60s again, it's just, not that you can't, try to sound like that in some way, but that whole spirit and everything, it's like the influence of everything that's going on politically, socially, and in the world, and so now we're in this whole another place, and the music is just going to reflect that, right?
That's a great point. Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Greg.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Greg?
Hi, Greg.
How you doing?
Doing very, very well, thanks. Great to see you.
Thank you. It's
Hi,
good to
Colin.
be seen. I have a question.
Go for it.
I am soon to be 77 years old,
Oh,
and my wife suggested I learn how to play the piano.
sounds like a good idea to me.
I just wanted to know what you thought of that.
Why
I played the trombone in elementary school, and I sang in choirs through high school,
Mhm.
and that's the music experience I've got.
It's all going to help. That's going to help. And when you play piano, it's like seeing in the keys. You can see the music right in front of you like that. It's different than playing a single line instrument. Yeah, I think playing piano is great for you. It's great for your mind. It's great for your focus. It's great for having fun. If you have fun, then you should do it.
Yeah.
Just say,
Okay.
this is going to be a fun experience.
Yeah.
Fun.
I'll call you Jerry.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, we're going on, what time is it? Almost an hour. So I thought we'd wrap up. If anybody else has any quick questions or wants to say anything in closing?
If nobody else has any other questions, I would like to ask a very quick one, and that is, what is your favorite meal?
That's a great question.
Meal?
Yeah. Well, I'm in a new phase right now where I'm trying to be vegan. So the great thing about being vegan is I don't really like any of the meals. So nothing.
That's a positive outlook.
It's like, okay, I'll eat this. Okay, I'll eat that. Okay, I'll eat this brown rice and lentils, with some collard greens or whatever. I like all of that, but nothing like really does it like having a lasagna or just like, so I'm not eating dairy, I'm not eating meat, but so it's what it is. And the great thing is, like, yeah, I'm not addicted to any food. I'm not a foodie because of that.
Jerry, you might have just lost your endorsement from the Vegan Society of America.
Yes, I think I did.
Yeah. Gee, let's all go
Well,
vegan now.
Having said that, my wife doesn't cook at all for me, so
Not anymore.
I'm the one that does the cooking. So if you had to eat what I cook, you wouldn't be going on about how good your food is.
I certainly have cooked all these years for him, but
Yep.
since he's decided to try his new diet, I was like, there's no oil involved, and I'm an Italian, and I can't cook without oil, so I can't do it.
That's funny, Imagine we just had dinner with our kids last night, and Sean was telling a story about this amazing Italian cook, and a vegan person was coming to Christmas, and she literally had no dish she could think of, and was just agonizing over what to serve this poor vegan person who was going to come. She's like, I don't have anything. And it was struggling to find it. So I empathize.
Yeah.
It is a challenge.
Jerry, you should check out, there are a couple of really good vegan restaurants around Boston. There's one called Grasshopper in like Austin, Brighton area. It's fantastic. I mean, they make really creative dishes, so it's it's not all of the same kind of.
I need the Grasshopper. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna eat there.
There you go. Giving you tips.
There are a couple. That's not the only
There's a
one.
couple that are nearby. I think there's something in Walpole and Norwood that I've heard.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm not familiar with anything around there though. But I know that one in particular has some really, really creative dishes. They find new ways to allow you to be vegan because of course you get tired of the same grains, the same vegetables and stuff. So they have different combinations and seasonings and whatnot. So that might be worth checking out.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. I see Colleen Stanton's on now, your neighbor. Say hi.
Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
She's in Savannah.
McCrossins. I mean, it's just, one of the things that I really appreciate about Medfield is just there's an amazing community of people who are either in music professionally or have come through the school system and have benefited from it or teach it. Kathy McCrossen's son is at Jazz at Lincoln Center. It's just been, a lot of kids in the jazz band. It's an amazing community to be associated with. And Jerry, you're certainly a huge, huge part of that. And, I think it's having you here today, and Jill's also taught in the schools, having everybody here today and having you in particular as our special guests is just really important for keeping music alive, not just in the community, but also in the schools. We all know how much it benefits the students and how valuable it is, especially in times like these. So just a huge thank you for being here today and for everybody for tuning in. This was fun.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for
Yeah.
tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
We hope the scene in Medfield gets strong like it was in the days of Anton, when the jazz band was
Roaring.
roaring.
Yeah, Jerry's reminded me, this is going to be on Medfield TV. We're going to take the recording and share it with them, and then they'll also put it up. We'll put it on the Zullo website first. We
Cool.
have sort of exclusive arrangement to have it on the Zullo website first before it goes on the Medfield TV site.
I hope I didn't offend anybody.
But
Yeah, we will edit out the vegan part about it not tasting
Okay.
good, Jerry.
But what's also been really nice about this too is that right now with the Zullo Gallery, it's quiet. Wintertime is usually a quiet time. The pandemic hasn't helped. I know that Bill Pope is just really thrilled that we're able to just do these virtual talks to keep the Zullo on everybody's radar. And hopefully when things completely open up and we can get back to having live music, we can gather in person and really enjoy each other's company. And that's a community that comes from being at the Zullo. So, but these have been great. It's been fun doing them, and it's been great to see people have been making donations after they've tuned in or during. So if anybody's, inspired to make a donation to the Zullo, go for it. I know that Bill would be thrilled. And it was nice to get the grant from the Medfield Cultural Council to run this as well. So it's been huge. So
Thank you
Jerry,
for all the work
thank
that
you so
do,
much.
Chris.
Oh, nothing.
You do a lot.
Yes.
To keep
thank
it
you so
all
much.
happening.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Johns, it was good to see you.
For Chris.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Anton, for hanging in there and coming in. And our
Yeah,
thoughts are with you on the whole Ukraine situation. I know you have family and friends over there. So,
Thank you for saying that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we're thinking of you.
yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, enjoy the
break.
rest of your Sunday afternoon.
Let's pray
Yes.
for peace.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for coming.